Thanks for joining us. I'm Nancy Furness, and this is We've Got Issues. Our interview today is taking place at the Poirier Public Library in Coquitlam, and we'd like to thank the Coquitlam folks for giving us a space to carry out the interview. Our interview is also taking place on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded lands of Coquitlam First Nation. So we thank the Coquitlam for continuing to live on the lands, to care for the lands and the waters and all that lies above and below. Today I'm joined by Jane Thomsing, and Jane is an education assistant, a nature ambassador, and a mom. So thank you so much for joining us today, Jane, taking time out of your busy day.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
You are a longtime nature advocate. You have 3 kids, and I was wondering, can you start us off by telling us why is it so important to get kids out into nature?
Absolutely. I mean, it is incredibly important that kids get time outside in nature. I think the recommended dose of nature is about 1 hour a day or 2 to 3 hours on the weekend, again, depending on the age of the kids. And I would say that that is a starting point. We really need to encourage families to have their kids outside in nature as much as possible. The benefits are enormous. So, if we're talking about, firstly, from a mental health perspective, when kids get outside, it allows them to really open up their minds. It's very, very good for a de-stressing.
Oh, okay. So anxiety and stress.
Absolutely. And I'm not the doctor, but I have done a lot of research, and research has shown that getting time outside in nature with especially unstructured play really helps to diminish, the effects of things like ADHD, anxiety, and for all of us. I mean, getting outside, it's rare that you find someone coming in to say, oh, that stressed me out,
I feel
right?
worse now than I did
Absolutely,
when I went out.
Yeah.
Yes.
So from a mental health perspective, the benefits of outside time for children is huge.
Well, and I think that, we know that if you're busy, you need to have time out in nature, and the busier you are, the more time you need out in nature, and this is especially true for kids, right?
Absolutely.
They've got so much on their shoulders now.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about learning environment? So what is the benefits of learning outside, and what are some of the things that you learn outside that you simply couldn't learn inside?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, firstly, I think when it comes to learning outside, a lot of children and adults too learn better outside than they do in an indoor environment. For a lot of kids, it's very hard to be sitting in a chair and in a classroom setting. It's very stressful for them, maybe, to be in an enclosed environment. But when you take the classroom outside, you'll suddenly see a lot of sharp eyes and curiosity and just a sense of really wanting to learn. Also, imaginations come out with that type of learning as well. I mean, take something as simple as math, for example. Yes, we can go on the board and look at our book, 1 + 1 is, etc. But we might take the classroom outside and say, let's do a scavenger hunt and bring back your objects. So perhaps they find a pine cone, a leaf, a stick. And then we might start putting them into rows and suggesting, could you now add up all the things that you found in your scavenger hunt? Or who has found more pine cones, who has found less pine cones? You'll find every child is engaged in this sort of learning because it's much more fun. It's not in an enclosed environment, and the children are much more engaged. So I think when it comes to getting outside, it's also a great opportunity for learning for children as well.
Well, I think that's a really good illustration. Like, you can do patterns, you can do numbers, and then suddenly that child who might have been disruptive or not paying attention inside becomes a star pupil, like learning and absorbing and taking all sorts of opportunities that they wouldn't get inside.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you pointed that out, because I do find that when I'm in a classroom setting, the children that tend to be the most dysregulated or angry or stressed or not wanting to participate, when you bring it to an outdoor classroom setting, they're the ones that are the most engaged. So you can really see how outdoor time is just benefiting these little brains that are just sponges for information.
Right. And can you talk a little bit about the role that forests and parks have in learning? Like specifically going out into the forest or on a trail in a park. What opportunities do those provide? I know you brought up some math examples. Is there anything else
Absolutely.
you could add to that?
Definitely. I mean, I think you may have heard people talk about how kids these days know logos or brands more than they know birds
Yes.
or trees or plants. And so when I tend to bring children outside, at first there's not a lot of talking. You know, we really let them have the time to observe and play, and even just touching nature is, it might sound basic, but it really gives an opportunity for that child to connect themselves with nature. Then these questions start coming out, or they see an insect, or they see a plant. What is this? And instead of just giving them a plain answer, you know, we start talking about it. What does it look like to you? What do you see?
What
Is
do you
it
think
soft?
it's doing?
Absolutely. So it really helps with growth mindset, where the children are becoming curious about what's in the forest, about the creatures in the forest, or we might hear a bird. What does that sound? And I might ask them, what do you think it is? And then it develops into a conversation of, what birds do you think live here? Can you name 5 birds that you think will live here? And we'll get some funny answers. A flamingo, a penguin, and that's
But
okay.
that's all good, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It starts the conversation and it gets them thinking, and it really starts to connect them with their natural environment.
And once you start feeling connected, you start caring too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for myself, I can say that the reason why I am so passionate about nature and all of nature's creatures and connecting children is that's how I grew up. And I went through a phase, you know, as a child I loved it. And then I went through the teenage years where I didn't.
Of course.
But then you come full circle and so appreciate that your parents took the time to really connect you with nature.
Yeah.
Because now I have such an appreciation for it. And I know when I'm stressed out that I can simply step out into the outdoors and definitely feel a lot better.
Absolutely. A few years back now, you worked with a group called Wondrous Tree Fellowship to
Yes.
do a nature and kids art. And can you explain a little bit about what you did in that project? You had kids finding a sit spot and connecting with nature. Can you tell us about that?
That's right. Yes, we had sort of you could say it was a bit of an art contest, but our main goal was to get kids outside. And some people might be familiar with the term sit spot, which is essentially finding a spot in nature where you can place yourself and just really close your eyes or open up your ears and your mind and think about your surroundings. And then to put that into an art piece, whether it was painting or clay or crayons, it didn't matter.
A poem, maybe?
Absolutely, a story or whatever it may be. But the idea was so to get the child into a natural environment where they could really just think and get to know their surroundings and all that was around them.
No, that's great. Now, you know, and I think just to take that time to sit is sometimes really, really challenging. Kids are tied up in organized sports and school, and they have so many activities.
Yes.
Can you talk about, maybe give us some tips as a busy mom yourself? How do you find time, or how do you make time to, you know, get out into nature?
Absolutely. You know, Nancy, that's a really good point. And I feel the pressures as well as a mother. I mean, the pressure to have kids busy all the time is immense right now. And I really, really encourage parents and families to try to take a step back and think about time in nature as important as eating or sleeping. It's a necessity for our mental health as well as our physical health. It's a chance to de-stress. And so I think that it's really important for families to try and find a block of an hour or half an hour if you can and get outside. And, you know, whether it's as soon as they come home from school, when you come home from work. I know we're in an environment right now where it is wet and dark, but you have to make it fun.
What a great time to be out there, though.
Absolutely.
In the forest, in the rain, it's magic.
It really is. And there is no shortage of fun activities and things that you can do in the rain and in the dark. You can bring a flashlight. You can, you know, make mud pies. You can splash in puddles. There's no shortage of things that you can still be doing. And children thrive out there. You'll notice as soon as you get them out, you're going to have a hard time getting them come back in.
Absolutely. I know from experience.
Yes.
And I think we've even seen doctors now signing up for the park prescription where they're
Yes.
prescribing time in nature. It's that important, and it's starting to be recognized at long
Absolutely.
last.
I'm so happy to see that, and I actually had the privilege of hearing that doctor speak in Vancouver who is prescribing nature for families. And I think that is absolutely important, and the message is we need nature as much as we need food and sleep and shelter. It's a really important component for a healthy lifestyle.
Well, it's essential to
Absolutely.
development and to both physical and mental well-being, I think. Can you tell us some of your favorite spots out in the Tri-Cities here? We're so fortunate.
goodness.
We're surrounded by nature. But what are some favorites for you?
Absolutely. Like you say, we are so fortunate. We really are surrounded by an abundance of green space, creeks and rivers. And what's great about that is it gives everybody an opportunity to find somewhere to go. My personal favorites, I have to say, is my number one is Tlahatam Regional Park. It is an oasis and a beautiful spot where I can just go and find a sit spot where I get to hear a whole variety of birds. It's where I've learned about different bird species and trying to train my ear with bird calls, so I really enjoy going there. The beauty about that too is that it's accessible by a trail where I can pretty much go almost from my house way up in River Springs and follow the river trail and the trail that then eventually gets to the park without needing to be on a road. So
And
I
can
love
you
that.
tell us, where is Tlahatam Park?
Tlahatam Regional Park is located off of the Lougheed Highway and very close to where the Coquitlam First Nation Reserve. It is on unceded and traditional territory of the Coquitlam First Nation. Some people may know it as Colony Farm Regional Park, but in I think 2023, it was changed to Tlahatam Regional Park, which means to be invited.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell us, okay, so that's one of your favorite spots. Do you have one more maybe that you can share with us?
Well, I definitely venture to Minnetonka Park a lot too. It's a regional park that's not too far also from where I live. And the beauty of going there is that it's accessible by bike, it's accessible by car, but it's also accessible by bus, by transit. So, and once you get there and start walking the trails, within about 5 to 10 minutes of walking, you're greeted with this beautiful wetland filled with wildlife. And again, finding a sit spot there to just enjoy those surroundings, I feel my blood pressure decreasing with every step.
That's wonderful. And I think, there's such a variety. So we have old field habitat to wetlands to sort of more hilly mountainous terrain and all kinds of different, habitats and terrain to traverse. And with kids,
Absolutely.
it's all possible.
Absolutely, yes.
So,
yes.
Despite that, we have so many wonderful spaces to get out. There's still barriers, even within the Tri-Cities. Can you talk a little bit about what some of those barriers are and how maybe we can overcome them?
Absolutely. I mean, again, I guess some of the areas I'm talking about, some people may feel that these places aren't accessible to them. And these are not places that you absolutely need to get to, because the beauty about the Tri-Cities is that pretty much anywhere that you live, there is green space nearby, whether it's Hyde Creek or up near Mundy Park or close to the Coquitlam River. There are definitely lots of opportunities for families to be able to walk out of the door and not have to go too far before they're feeling immersed in nature. But I will say, Nancy, when I'm making suggestions to the community, I'm always thinking about affordability.
Right,
And
just top of mind.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I was once at visiting a speaker that talked about how can we get families more connected with nature. And one of her suggestions was we should all move and live somewhere where we can be waterfront. And I thought to myself, am I at the Billionaires Convention?
That works for some,
Absolutely.
not
This
many.
is just not a reality
Wow.
for most families, and who are struggling to get by and living maybe paycheck to paycheck or worse. So that's, when I say affordability, what I mean is I'm not suggesting you get to Whistler or go visit Banff. I'm talking
Right.
about getting into a green space near where you live and enjoying what that space has to offer, because there are slugs and streams and water and rocks and sticks.
All kinds of wonderful things.
And these things are exciting for children. They will thrive in this type of environment. And also, I know for some families, they've said to me, I can't because I don't have the equipment. And there is a saying that says, there is no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothing. And that is a really important point. When we're talking about people getting outside, we want to make sure that, when if it's pouring rain and we're telling people you should really get out there, that they're not miserable. So, you need a pair of rain pants, a rain jacket, rain boots. So families will often say, I can't afford that. And that is a reality. And I very much sympathize with that. But what I do suggest then is, even if thrift stores are unaffordable, there are sites like a no-buy sites or free clothing sites.
Local ones.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I strongly encourage them to go online and try to find these resources, because there are families that are always offering outdoor equipment.
Right, kids grow up and quickly, and those clothes need to go somewhere. Right?
Definitely, yeah. So find those resources, or ask at your school if they know of these resources, because those are available. Everybody should have access to get some equipment or some clothing to be able to play outside.
Right, shouldn't be a barrier.
Absolutely.
How do people find out about these places? Do you have any favorite books or websites, or how do we find them?
This book, which is called Best Hikes and Nature Walks with Kids, this book was gifted to me at Christmas, and here we are in the season. And while I'm not a paid promoter of the book, I will say that this has been a wonderful treat for my family. I have gone to places that I never even knew existed, from looking at different places all throughout the Lower Mainland. It goes into the Fraser Valley as far up as Whistler, and talks about all the different hikes that you can do with your kids. It mentions which ones might be more challenging than others.
It's good to know ahead of time.
Absolutely. So we've been able to venture out into a number of different places in British Columbia, again, that are a lot are accessible by transit, and enjoy seeing different ecosystems and different wildlife, and it's a great book. The other thing I'll suggest is that it's not necessarily that you have to have this book. Not going to lie, I'm not a very creative person. So sometimes I need a helping hand in coming up with activities, because another thing I feel is, when you're taking kids outside, you want to make it fun,
right,
and
keep them engaged and connected to nature. Yeah.
Definitely. And so when I'm out with a group of children, I tend to find a little project that we can do together. The one that I'm actually hoping to do with my own daughter this weekend, that I opened up, is, can you make a robin's nest? So it's kind of funny. It comes with a recipe, but it's not just about touching earth and mud and building stuff. We start talking about birds and nests, and the questions start coming. How do they make their nests? What do they make their nests with? What if it rains? What if it's windy? And you really
what if that tree gets cut down?
Good point. And we definitely start thinking a lot about how nature works. And the more you dig in, you start to realize nature is absolutely fascinating. And at the end, you try to build a robin's nest with mud and grasses and sticks, and
you
see if
see
we
all
can
the
do
challenges and
absolutely. And
what works,
and
what doesn't.
What's always so fun at the end, and we all have a good chuckle, is we really struggle, and often can't seem to make anything close to what these little birds with no hands can make for having their babies and protecting their eggs, and it's just fascinating. So there's all kinds of really cool projects and activities. And again, I often go to this book, or I'll reach out to friends, but these are easy things you can find online too if you're struggling to think of ideas. Some people find a puddle, and they have little races. They make little boats, or find
make
things
them out
that
of a
can
leaf
float.
and a stick.
Absolutely, exactly. Finding nature's tools. One of my daughter's favorite parks is actually a tree that has fallen that she can bounce up and down on. That's a seesaw that overlooks a creek where she spent a lot of time watching the salmon spawn.
Aww.
So there's just no shortage of fun to be had in our natural environments. And, to be honest, we're definitely seeing a major decrease in children getting outside. We're also seeing a major increase in kids spending hours upon hours on screens.
Tell us a little bit about that. Why is that a problem?
It's a huge problem, Nancy. I mean, I know earlier we touched on the benefits of being outside and mental health, but there's also physical health. There's also, it expands your mind. It helps with social skills and helps with concentration. And it's healthy, right? You're in the fresh air. Whereas being inside on screens, research has shown that too much time spent on screens is having a very devastating impact on the mental health of children, on their ability to communicate, on their levels of concentration. And so we're seeing
And self-esteem.
Absolutely. It's awful right now, and it's a real big challenge because we're seeing a spike in kids on their screens, and I'm not even just talking about these rainy months. I'll ask kids at school, hey, what did you do this weekend? And it will have been 24, 25 degrees outside. I played on railroad blocks. Did you get outside? No. It's shocking and very sad. And I think, when I talk to parents about it, a lot of them will say that they do struggle with time, and that they also have a fear that when they send their kids outside, that nature is a dangerous place.
Right, there's that perception sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And my first answer is usually to say the internet and the games that your kid are playing are actually a lot more dangerous to them than being outside. And when I ask, what are your fears of being outside? Well, there are bears, or there are coyotes, or, the rivers are raging, or whatever it may be. And when we're suggesting to take your kids outside, we're not suggesting find a secluded area and enter that cave that, to see if there's a bear.
Right by that rushing river.
Right, exactly. That's not what we're suggesting. We're suggesting time around trees, around plants, around birds singing, outside. And, it doesn't have to be far from home. And it can be in an area where a lot of people are around. During the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, we found that because everything was canceled and closed, I can tell you that at Schlahatem Regional Park, the number of people that came to that park tripled in that time.
Yes.
And it really showed how important these natural spaces and time spent outside, how important it was for kids and families. So yes, the pandemic may be over and things have reopened again, but it's just as important now. And it's still important to get outside and get that dose of vitamin D, we call it. Get outside, get in nature. The benefits are huge. And you'll be helping your child with their mental health, with their confidence, their self-esteem, and it's free. So, it's really strongly encouraged for parents. We really do all need to take a responsibility in getting our kids off screens and into nature. And I know it's challenging. I understand that it is hard to say to a kid, put down your phone or get off your iPad and get outside. But we're doing them a long service. And, while it might be short-term pain, I can guarantee you that there is long-term gain by getting your kids outside.
You know what? You've got me completely convinced. And let's hope that we've got some parents out there convinced as well that maybe hadn't thought through all of this. So
Absolutely.
I just want to thank you so much for coming in and talking to us today, Jane.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Nancy. And I will say, as a parent, sometimes I find it hard to get out too, but I guarantee that once you get out, kids and adults alike will feel so much better.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. I'm Nancy Furness. This is We've Got Issues, and we've been speaking with nature enthusiast Jane Thomsing.